Good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is the Creative Bird Strategies podcast and house here on Clubhouse, episode 43 to our podcast. Very excited. This is Joe Scarice, your founder and host, here to provide education, networking, and hopefully some strategy. Always want to thank our our great sponsors that we have here every week, in and out, here every Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, every Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, to provide great, just great stuff for our real estate professionals that really are just seeking out information to build out their real estate mindset, their portfolio. And today's discussion, like no other, is we're going to discuss zoning and land use strategies for real estate investors. But our sponsors, I want to thank MB Capital, our unsecured business line of credit service provider that provides real estate professionals with unsecured business lines of credit. I want to thank our Lendmark Capital, our asset-based lender, nationwide lender providing asset-based lending throughout the country. Also want to thank Perkatech, Yardell Perkins, here to provide social media strategy. He is basically our backbone to the podcast, providing insight as well. And then I want to thank Realty 411 with Linda Pelagas, who provides national publication for real estate professionals as well as national events throughout the country. So I'm going to get started here in just a few minutes. It's a little weird. I think there's a little wonky. We can't share the room, which is a little interesting. Ed or Bob, can you let me know? Is there a way that we can invite people in? Bob or Ed, can you unmic? Ed, can you invite people in? But you can't invite anybody in now. Yeah, but it's not letting me invite people in. It's kind of unusual. I guess it's maybe story of my life. Yeah, maybe that's what happened. No, there's something a little quirky here that I can't figure out. But here, I can share it, but invite people. There it is. It's in a different slot now. You got to go into the share button, right? And then you got to be able to share it, and then you can invite people in, which is kind of unusual. I've never seen anything like that before. That's something new via Clubhouse. Via Clubhouse is keeping me on my toes and making sure I stay abreast of what's going on with new piece of the pie. So yeah, we'll dive into some of the market trends that happened this week. Very busy week in the lending space. I'm seeing rates came down about a quarter point in the commercial space. So really, it's really impacted a lot of investors come off the sidelines in regards to refinance. I'm seeing a lot of turnkey purchases right now, debt service leveraging 80% on the purchase side and taking advantage of some on-market deals on the MLS that are working, making close to 2% return on their money. So I'm seeing some of that. A lot of fixed rents are coming to the front line. Rates have stayed very steady in the bridge financing space. Been holding tight around 10 and a quarter on the interest only on fixed to rent or fixed to flip. Seen some flips, but seeing primarily rehabs to hold. So that's very interesting to watch. We probably I saw probably about 4 million going this week alone, just in that type of inquiry base. Some larger stuff, 5 through 25 units, are starting to come to the front line. Multifamily, mixed use is still getting very choppy. Not a lot of appetite for a commercial presence or retail presence to a multifamily building right now in the small balance, meaning 5 through 25. It's just not there yet. Maybe there'll be some more comfort, but from some of my reports that I'm seeing in market trends this week, commercial mortgage delinquencies are moving up. They're pointing up. I think that's going to bleed into the retail space. The office retail is taking a serious hammering. But then also some of the forecasting from home price growth trends in 2025 are showing a leveling off of pricing, because I don't know if really people understand appraisals and understand what's going on with values. Values are coming down. Okay, I'm seeing appraisals come down 10, 15 grand on average, 5 to 12% on average. And what I'm noticing is there's less sales to grab onto values. So the concern there is where are the comps coming from to justify appraisals right now in a single family through four family space, 5 through 25 units. Where are they? How are they going to justify comps if there's not enough sold and settles? So the concern I see here is the values are going to come down just because of lack of inventory showing sold properties, and the only values they'll have out there are the discounted purchases by investors. Bob, it's been a minute. Good morning. A little background. What's going on with you, man? Where you been? Hmm. Well, I'm glad you jumped on board. It's great to have you on here. Bob and I have long conversations when I'm on rides back from my travel in the evening, and we talk about just about everything and anything for an hour or so. And really appreciate his time on the phone and just having somebody to chat with and kind of mastermind as I'm driving long rides back from wherever I'm coming back from. So, let's dive into zoning and land use strategies for real estate investors. And by the way, if you've seen any background in my live podcast, this is podcast number 43. I am calling in from Ohio at the Mr. Landlord Expo with Jeffrey Taylor. Great event, about a couple hundred real estate agents, not agents, investors, and professionals networking to better themselves as landlords. It's kind of a 102 level expo. It's not one of your typical RIA events where it's a lot of newer investors. This is definitely a blend of somebody that already owns investment properties that's trying to grow. We're trying to kind of pivot. There's a lot of different unique discussions, mastermind groups. This to the late evening. I've been at meetings till 9 o'clock in the evening every night, starting and being here by 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning. So they're already in the hall doing a discussion. So I have the opportunity to provide insight today. But I think these type of expos are necessary to kind of sharpen your tool shed, and I really do appreciate what Jeffrey Taylor does. I'd like to try to get him to the Philadelphia, South Jersey market. So I'm going to work on that following this event. But calling in from Columbus, Ohio, I'll be heading back later this afternoon. So today's discussion, zoning and land use strategies. And I put out an article on LinkedIn. You could find that. I just posted it this past week. Zoning and land use strategies are critical for real estate investors to maximize the value and potential of their investments. And we're gonna do a comprehensive, or try to kind of cover essential aspects and strategies for real estate investors. So, understanding zoning and land use. And before I go further, I'm not an attorney, not a CPA. Please go to speak with your attorney or CPA in regards to this. Uh, we're just kind of giving an opinion and thoughts and direction, but always go to your power team to discuss any of the things that we're discussing here. This is of our own personal opinion. This is not advice. Understanding zoning and land use. Zoning laws. These are regulations established by local governments to control how property in specific geographic zones can be used. Zoning laws typically categorize land into residential, commercial, industrial, and agricultural areas. Land use plan. This involves the process by which the lands are evaluated and planned for the future, considering factors like sustainability, economic development, and community needs. Key zoning and land use strategies: research and due diligence, identify upzoning opportunities, leveraging special use permits and variances, meaning special use permits. These permits are allowed property owners to use their land in a way that is not normally permitted within a particular zoning district. Example, adding an ADU. That's something that's very unique because the designation of the property itself still says single family, but you're creating an income producing asset on the property. You can't use that in your evaluation from a debt service coverage ratio, though I'm running that up the flagpole with our underwriting to get a waiver or an exception to take consideration into ADU revenue. I'm working on that right now, and I'll keep you abreast of that. But that's something that would be unique. That's kind of becoming very present in today's market. Adaptive reuse, converting existing structures, transforming old industrial buildings or warehouses into residential lofts or commercial spaces. These are sustainable practices, and this is happening right now. Mixed use developments, combining, say, a mixed use strip mall or some type of mixed use type of component, and adding residential. Now, you're most likely going to need to go with elevators and up to date type of development, but there could be a cost benefit relationship. There's long-term vision, future growth areas, investing into areas that are poised for future growth based on infrastructure developments, population trends, and economic forecasts. And I keep telling you, listening into our podcast, follow the migration rental reports. They're telling us where people are moving to, where the better barrier of entries to survive and live and thrive. Utilizing professional services such as zoning attorneys, urban planners, and implementing the strategies, market analysis, networking, and building relationships with local officials, planners, and other stakeholders who can provide valuable insights and assistance. And I keep telling you, go to your zoning meetings where your properties are. You're going to find out a lot of good stuff. It's better than a regular networking event. You're finding out who's winning and losing in your space. Okay, you need to understand urban revitalization. You need to understand suburban expansion. You need to understand historical preservation. One of my first rehabs was a historical designated home. I had to go by the historical guidelines in that community to renovate that property. It worked out very well in my plan, but effective zoning and land use strategies require a deep understanding of the local regulations, the market conditions, and future growth trends. By staying informed and proactive, real estate investors can unlock significant value and mitigate risk associated with their investments. Ed, good morning. Welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning, zoning and land use strategies for real estate investors. Well, and that ties into what we're discussing this morning, Ed. How do you create value add in a market that's leveling off or depleting in value right now, or just not? It's just a stagnant, you know, seventh inning in the reset. So, where have you seen zoning and land use strategies applied in your local market that you've seen success and you've seen failure? Mhm. All right. Well, Ed, thank you for your insight. My thoughts with where in our market, I'm seeing a lot of the commercial buildings either being converted to residential space, of course, loft style, with some light work office space or a flex space. And the concern I have is the environmental. Like what are these people breathing in these buildings that were what was being done in those buildings 100 years ago would be my question, Ed. Especially in Philadelphia, like I did a presentation at a building that's over 125 years old. I don't know what the hell I was breathing in there and what the hell they were making 100 years ago. But I wouldn't have an office in there. You know what I mean? So again, I mean, they don't have a choice other than knocking these buildings down and going back up with new buildings. But there's still some great opportunities for value add um, out there. I'm seeing the discussion of modular build becoming present in the new construction lending space. I'm waiting on our final guidelines to be issued on on residential construction. Hopefully, modular will be allowed in that space. It's very present. The problem is with modular is that all of it comes at the same time for the build, so it's hard to break down a draw schedule for a construction loan because all the boxes come in one time, and then now you're connecting the dots. So it's going to be very interesting how modular is conducted in the new construction space for asset-based lending, or it stays with the local banks and credit unions. Well, Ed, thank you for your input this morning. Bob, good morning and welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to the discussion, zoning and land use strategies for real estate investors. Get back at it.
There are three major concerns you have to take into account, whether you're building new construction or renovating an existing project, because these three will burn you no matter what. And I'll tell a story right afterwards. The three concerns are drainage, drainage, and drainage. Water is going to be your number one worst enemy, especially if you're looking at an existing property. For example, my mom's house in PA, there was a school, the local school was renovated and somehow bypassed the normal Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, or DEP as we call it, regulations. Right after that, magically, my mother's and father's basement started flooding with water on a regular basis. And all the efforts to mitigate the water movement coming into this house, which was built in 1950, and then all of a sudden in the 90s, we started to have this problem that is continuing on even to this day. We spent tons of money putting French drains in, and every time we did, we kept running into issues with the local permitting process between the township and the state. For example, Pennsylvania, you cannot tie a French drain. That's a drain that's the drain system we put in. It's called a French drain. I won't get too technical. They wouldn't let us tie it into the sewers. They wouldn't let us tie it into the storm drain system because citing the Pennsylvania Clean Streams Act. So the water basically had to be turned around the property, discharged, and then flow across the front yard and into the storm drains. That's how ridiculous some of these regulations get. So make sure if you're doing any type of renovation work or any type of construction, that the people you're working with understand the local zoning laws, permitting, and also environmental regulations for both the municipality and the state. because any one of those people at any time can shut your project down and bye money. That's all I'm going to say. So with that, Joe, I'm going to turn the microphone back to you.
Thank you, Bob. When it comes to real estate development, navigating the complex web of zoning and land use laws can be difficult. I agree with Bob. However, it's crucial to understand how these laws may affect developers' plans to use a property, making improvements, selling or leasing the property to commercial tenants or residential parties. Zoning laws dictate how properties can be used and developed into a specific area, ensuring the land is used appropriately for its intended purpose while being compatible with the neighboring properties. Zoning laws regulate the use of land with a municipality or jurisdiction. Dividing areas into different zones such as residential, commercial, industrial, and agricultural, land use laws can encompass a broader range of regulations that govern how properties can be utilized based on factors that like density requirements, lot restriction, setback requirements, historic preservation guidelines, environmental impact, and different types of assessments. The impact of zoning and land use laws on real estate developers and investors cannot be understated. An attorney with experience in real estate law can provide invaluable assistance in addressing these issues, helping with matters such as determining suitable property use, negotiating with local authorities, like what Bob was saying. You got to go to your zoning meetings, obtaining required permits, environmental impact assessments. Okay, you need to go to these zoning meetings and see who's actually successful in accomplishing the permit process, the zoning process. This, and then also seeing why people are losing. What did they do wrong? How did they represent it? Maybe there was something going on with the zoning board at the time. Maybe there's something that irked them. So you need to take a deeper thought into when you're looking to pull permits and land use or zoning. Good morning, Travis. Welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning, zoning and land use strategies for real estate investors. Travis?
Hey, Joe. Sorry.
Hey, good morning. How are you? You've been a minute.
Good, man. How's it going?
Good.
Yeah, it has.
So any thoughts to zoning and a little background on yourself and who you are, what you do, and thoughts to zoning and land use strategies for real estate investors?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'm Travis. I'm a real estate broker here in the northern Houston market. Houston's a little different where I think most people know when you think about Houston, we don't have zoning. So we have a lot of deed restrictions, areas that are deed restricted, but not a lot. We don't really have zoning in the city of Houston. There are municipalities that surround Houston that have zoning, but Houston itself and the counties, there's no zoning. So a little different here, but there's still the challenges that Bob was talking about as far as like what to do with water. When you're building some kind of commercial building or developing land, that's the thing that people have to worry about is detention ponds, retention ponds. But I like what you were talking about, Joe, about what to do with the old buildings and how to convert them. We've got a lot of empty office buildings around Houston that people are trying to figure out what to do with, and I'd like to see just how expensive all that is to convert an office building into maybe a hotel or even an apartment building. As far as my personal experience with zoning, like you, one of the first properties that I remodeled over in Mobile, Alabama, where they do have zoning, was in a historic district. And I too had to follow the historic guidelines. And, I thought that what they had in place was really good. It was keeping the properties, they wanted the properties to look like they were still, built in the early 1900s, which I could appreciate. And, I think that adds value. I think it's kind of sad when everybody tears down all these old craftsman style homes and, builds some big mansion. So my experience with it was good as far as that. But outside of that, I personally don't have a lot of experience.
Yeah, I had to, with the building I restored. It was my aunt's home. She aged to a point where she had to get rid of the property, and she was thinking about just putting it on the market. And I said, listen, I'll buy it from you. What do you want? And she gave me a number, and I said that makes sense, and I know what the back end values are. These are big palatial homes. It was a 24-room home with a sunroom. Yeah, it was a massive undertaking. The property was probably a good acre, stretch. Uh, Funny story, when I came over there to start taking care of the property, my mom had told me, hey, go over and take care of Aunt Connie's house and, take care of things. And I go over there, and the lawn was a mess. And I literally raked all the leaves from all the way from the back to the front, and put them all across the front, street, on the curb, right? And it was like 6 foot high across the board, across the whole thing, like of leaves. And so the DPW calls my aunt and says, "Hey, you need to get the company that did this come back out to level off the leaves. They're too high for us." And my aunt tells them, "No, my nephew did that for me." They're like, "One guy did all that." And it was like this. They wanted to meet me because they're like, we never seen something so like immense brought all the way to the front. But I busted my ass, and it was a big property. But the one thing I had to do, I found that the sunroom wasn't cost benefit; it was an add-on to the original building, and I was able to present it to the historical society and say, "Listen, this wasn't part of the original building. I had to go back and provide pictures to why I could take it away, and I showed him how I was going to make this beautiful garden and walkway, and how it complemented the building more, and it was more cost benefit, and they agreed with me because it wasn't part of the original structure from the historical pictures that I provided. But everything had to be done by master craftsmen. All the moldings outside, everything had to be very specific to code to how they wanted it. Um, I made close to $300,000 on that sale. It, yeah, it was a beautiful. The end result was just amazing. My aunt was very happy with it, and it made a very good impression on the family too as well. But I learned a lot about historical zoning and permits. I mean, you brought up something about Houston. Funny enough, here at the Landlord Expo here in Columbus, Ohio, I met a couple landlords from Houston. They're having a hard time down there with landlord tenant law right now. What is going on in Houston? Like, is it the housing crisis where homelessness, or this or low income housing not enough? What's going on in Houston that they were really not happy with? What they're not making money based on insurance and based on tax increases and based on the way Section 8 is set up right now there.
Yeah, I don't know what landlord tenant laws that they're dealing with that are having an issue. But I don't know. I don't know what the city of Houston has passed that might be affecting people. Most of my properties are outside the city limits, so I don't have to deal with that. We're mostly suburbia
Yeah.
counties. But I can tell you that the property taxes have gone up like almost doubled in the last 2 years. And insurance rates have just about doubled in the last couple of years, and the rents aren't keeping up. So, one thing that I've been doing is when I have clients that tell me, "Yeah, I want to buy another investment property." Of course, I run the numbers, right, and I'm looking at what our purchase prices are now. An example, like here in the Woodlands area where I live, you could buy a starter home is going to cost you, a normal starter home is probably going to cost you almost $500,000.
Wow.
And I can tell you that I'm not going to get enough rent out of that property for you to even pay your mortgage and taxes and insurance. And that's what I'm having to tell these people. Like, hey, you buy that property, you're going to be about $500 to $1,000 negative every month in cash flow before any kind of management fees or anything else, any maintenance. That's just based on the rent versus your mortgage payment with 20% down. So to me, that's a challenge. So I don't know how people are buying more properties and making any money. They must be. I'm assuming they're all hedge funds or something that are buying them because they're buying them cash. But for the majority, the prices don't make sense.
Well, it's a lot of it's
streaming deal.
it's a lot of East Coast and West Coast investors that have a lot of high net worth that they can't put their money to work where they're at, and they're coming to
Right.
your markets. It's not the institutional buyer right now. You know, the hedge funds that people want to like blame it all on a big bad hedge fund. The hedge funds
Yeah.
are buying land and they're building out communities.
Right.
They're buying big tracts of property and putting up multifamily developments. They're not buying one-off single-family homes. It's a complete waste of their time deploying any type of money. It's investors from New York, California, East Coast, West Coast coming into the middle of the markets where migration rental reports are justifying the movements. I mean, right now there's 200 investors in the hall that I'm at right now. And all these investors are trying to figure out, do I stay buying in my same market or do I buy and become an out-of-state landlord? How do I justify the out-of-state landlord? So the discussion here is how to be a better landlord out of state or in state. It's not about just buying in your 5 minute or 10 minute vicinity anymore. You could be very virtual now. There was a whole discussion yesterday for 3 hours on AI and how AI is going to impact the landlord for the new renter, not the old renter, the new renter, and what they're looking for with AI to get addressed to pay their rent, to the amenities. Okay, I mean some of the stories I was hearing is like, you know, I know a landlord's up against an institutional renter, meaning like a multifamily building dwelling, because this guy was going to save $250 a month renting from a landlord, but he'd rather go to a multifamily development where they're giving him free coffee every day. Think about that. For $30 a month, I'll give you the Starbucks gift certificate. Come and rent our house, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm seeing here from the zoning play, Travis, and what you're seeing some things, you know, these commercial buildings. I wouldn't suggest converting them into hotels. I would look at Section 8 affordable housing because you already have the box room. Now the question is, can you run the mechanics to be a sufficient multifamily property, and will Section 8 or affordable housing in your area allow that? And how will that impact the schools from the children perspective? Like if they're 1, 2, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom apartments, how many kids can you allow to impact that educational system in that area? And that's going to impact, and zoning has to determine, is there a budget for that? And will that developer have to pay that difference in tax, not be abated by the means, because there's a lot of abatements out there in a lot of these communities throughout the country where you can get 10, 15 year tax abatements. Here in Columbus, Ohio, they're getting 10 to 15 year tax abatements on their taxes. So if you got a 2 or 3 bedroom, you're abating your taxes. Where's the money coming from when that individual that rents that unit brings 2 kids to the school district? How does that impact the big budget of education in that community for the individuals that home own? So there's a lot of give or take in this understanding zoning laws and how what the purpose of that building is, and then when you justify and change that, because you want to also protect property values. Like I think office retail right now is being discounted at 30-40%. I just saw an article in Philadelphia. One of the big developers just bought a property 50-60 cents on the dollar, but did he really buy it at 50 or 60 cents on the dollar? Maybe it's only worth half of he bought it. Maybe it's only worth what he bought it at. Maybe what he bought it at is the new value. It was just in the Philadelphia Inquirer. So, like, did he buy it at a discount or did he buy it at the value that it's worth? So, if you can take advantage of these opportunities in, I'll parenthesize, discounted commercial buildings, and convince or present the right zoning change conversion to that property, it can justify an immense opportunity for yourself in value add, because I don't see value add happening in the single family through 4 family space or 5 through 25 unit space over the next several years because of where interest rates are going to be and staying. Okay, inflation is not going away. Unemployment numbers were not good this past announcement. You got job reports coming out this week. So there's a lot of moving parts to what can be really developed. Rates leveled out not leveled up. They peaked again at 7.15 base rate for the traditional lenders, but at the same time, commercial lending money dropped a quarter point. So figure that out. Okay, where is the money going toward to get aggressive with in conversions, renovations, repairs? You need to have a good zoning attorney and understand the types of zoning, whether it's residential, single family, multifamily, mixed use residential, commercial zoning where it's retail, office, industrial, or agricultural zoning, or special purpose zoning like historical preservation, open space or park, plan unit development. Then understanding land use, building height and size. Like there's areas where you're not allowed to go above certain floors because the rest of the properties are not certain floors. Um, understanding parking. Parking's big in some of the major cities that don't have parking. Density and lot size. I had a conversation with a gentleman that was looking at a lot, and he's like, "Hey, maybe I'll build a single family." I'm like, "Can you build 2 condo units? Because you're not going to be allowed to park there anyway. So why don't you just make 2 condos out of it instead of one? And then the worst case, you sell one, rent the other, and now you're breaking even. You're making money. You need to consult with your local authorities." And again, engage with legal counsel in applying for zoning variances or rezoning. Don't try to do any of this on your own, but still do your due diligence. Consider zoning changes, diversifying your portfolio. I know a lot of people that develop land to get shovel ready and then sell the land off to developers, and they make a profit margin between that based on acquiring the land, doing all the third party work, and then sell it off to somebody that's going to do the hard work. There's nothing wrong with that, and just take a piece. I'm going to come back to Bob. Bob, your thoughts on our discussion this morning on a follow-up to zoning and land use strategies for real estate investors.
I do apologize. I missed part of that because we had somebody come over to the house. But basically, just summing up what I said before, pay attention to the details and make sure that you have the people on board who understand permitting and zoning. For example, and I know Joe, you know what I'm talking about here. If you're in Philadelphia, just as an example, in Philadelphia, the permitting process is so complicated that the city actually authorizes people that have background checks called expediters. And Joe, I know, knows a few of the expediters personally. I know one personally. And even contractors and lawyers have to hire expediters to get things through Philadelphia's infamous L&I and zoning boards, just because it's so complicated sometimes. So the one thing, just to, like as Joe said, go to the zoning meetings or the land use meetings, depending on what they call them in your state, in your area. Pay attention to what people are pushing back at. Frankly, also pay attention to see if there's any neighbors that are just going to try to NIMBY your project to death. NIMBY being short for not in my backyard, something we learned very quickly as engineers when people got angry that we're going to build a highway behind their property and things like that. But pay attention not just to what they're talking about the board, but what the locals are talking about. Because if you get a passionate local who just doesn't want you there, and even in some areas, and this is something Joe and I have talked about on one of his car rides home, like there are a lot of developers that are trying to go into some areas like, say, Scranton, Pennsylvania. And you're coming in from Philadelphia or New Jersey, and that's still an area where they're not too keen on outsiders coming in and buying up their properties, pushing up their prices, or in their mindset, they're going to bring all this crime with them and all these drugs with them and whatnot. Not that stuff wasn't already there, but you get the mentality. So sometimes even the local mentality is going to be one of the things you're going to have to raise for impact with. So just be aware of where you're working, be aware of who you're working around, and do your homework, because taking a night to go to a zoning meeting and seeing what people are griping about might actually tip the scale on whether or not you even want to take on a project in that area. Because if you see them giving resistance to somebody for something you're trying to do, you can guarantee that somebody's going to fight you on it, or maybe even try to go all out and sue you for it. And having worked with the site plans, I've seen this stuff happen. Where I've even had reporters trying to call me because my name was in there was on plans as a drafter years after I drafted them. It's a very unsettling feeling from the engineer side, but it's more so that when you're the actual property owner and you can't get anything done. So just pay attention to your surroundings and who's around you and what they're going to probably fight you on, and try to be proactive with it. Again, not trying to scare anyone, but just trying to make you aware that there is that other little angle there with some of this stuff. And with that said, Joe, I turn the microphone back to you.
Thank you, Bob. And you brought some thoughts up. Mass transportation announcements. So there's been this. I don't want to call it theory. It's becoming a little more tangible. That there's going to be a train reconnection up to Scranton from New York. Now, obviously, if that reconnects, that will be a game changer for where people live and commute to a major city if necessary. Obviously, we're more in a virtual hybrid work environment, but there's still people that need to go into the city for different type of job functionalities, and they can now live in a new suburban market, which was probably not too far away from being rural, 10, 15 years ago. Is this happening in various areas throughout the country? Is there pre-announcements made at local zoning meetings or little words on the street? That's where you learn about potential opportunities where maybe you can't afford to do the big commercial building conversion, but you could do some nice small little residential redevelopments knowing what's coming or what's being approved in a market and how it's going to impact value. Because you're not always going to make mass value on just renovating a property and just putting it back on the market for rent. You need to understand what's going on in your market from a zoning and land use strategy perspective that can game change the value and the growth of that area and your property value and the cash flow. There's other moving parts that it could impact you as a smaller real estate investor that bigger investors are doing in the zoning and land use space. So this is not just about understanding with zoning and land use and pulling permits and understanding what the capability of changing a asset to something else. This is something to understand the mindset of getting vision to finding out where there could be alterations and property value increases where we're in a market where you're not going to see heavy increases over the next several years because of rates, inflation, unemployment, economic concerns, geopolitical concerns, migration reports, rental reports, understanding where people are moving to, where people are going to, or where they're leaving, understanding Section 8 comparatively to market rents. Good morning, Justin. Welcome. Brief overview, who you are, what you do, and thoughts to our discussion this morning, zoning and land use strategies for real estate investors.
Yeah, good morning, Joe. Good morning, everybody. Joe, man, well, I'm sorry. I'm a real estate professional down here in Louisiana, licensed broker, but definitely more into the development lane right now. This is right on time, Joe, because I am actually looking at trying to take on one of these deals. I'm looking for somebody to kind of walk me through it who's done several of these deals. Probably going to get that person from Clubhouse just to kind of eliminate the, any potential competitive thoughts they might have just by it being such a small town or city and stuff like that. So I was going to call you absolutely this week to see who on Clubhouse to kind of walk me through that. But I'll go into some of the things that make me want to look at this opportunity. So this property, let's just say it's within 2 miles within a mile or two from the airport. It is surrounded already by residential homes. Those residential homes that it's surrounded by, it connects to a main highway that goes through the majority, about half of the city. And so, as far as it being the most that might have to, well, I'm looking at, thinking about, and hoping that I don't have to do is put in, it's a big, really big, just landed in my heart. So, but some of those things that we might have to put in. Hopefully, we won't have to do. We're just gonna be able to get the permission to build on the land and so on and so forth. We might take some of the trees down, but like I said, I'm looking to be kind of mentored through this thing because you know my experience. From my experience, I do know that it's a process. There are a lot of things that have that could go wrong. So my research has led me to know that usually on the first time with these types of things, you bring in somebody with the experience, so you can get the order of operations down. Time is really important on these deals because depending on how long you have to wait for one thing or another, time can kill a deal. It can change whether builders are building in that area or building period or can afford. So a lot of things can go on during that, but the biggest motivation for me is the potential opportunity for the income you'll make, obviously. But for me personally, if you've been listening to me, I'm trying to break into development with something significant. So this looked like a really on the ground opportunity. Probably do some type of bond for deed or seller finance with the deal. And yeah, so that's where I'm at with it, Joe. That's that. I just wanted to share that because this was right on time with the topic.
Well, I got a question for you, Justin. Thank you for jumping on. Justin's been a great moderator since the beginning of the Creative Birth Strategy several years ago, and I can't thank him enough for his friendship and obviously his professional relationship here to the Creative Birth Strategies podcast and myself. So, Justin, where's the property located roughly? What community? You can stay on mic too if you want.
Yeah, no, yeah. I wouldn't say. I would say just to say like the Baker, Scotlandville, like airport area. Like so, our airport is right in North Baton Rouge. Our city was founded on what we call the Bluff, right where the river curves. And the Bluff is on Southern University's campus. But if you come about 2 to 3 miles upwards and take a left down a highway, I know it sounds confusing, but the airport is right there. So about 3 miles from where the city was founded, which most cities are founded and built upon on their highest point, right? That's where they usually start, and people go and dissipate from there. So not to get into that too much.
Yeah, no. I'm just trying to understand where it is. So, like, is there?
I want to give you an idea where it's at and what's the significance of the location.
Yeah. So the property itself, the location, is there? Is it a neighborhood of a city? Is it a city? Is it a township? What is it? Like where the property is?
So yeah, so it's not a neighborhood. I guess it would be something like a township. They have a main road that goes down the highway. It goes down about half a mile. On either side, you have homes with a couple of acres of land on each property. So it's it's a two-way street, go in, go out, but it's a small two-way street, go in, go out. But all of the properties. But if you go behind some of those properties, there's there's a bunch of land, right? And so one of those parcels of land I'm looking to take advantage of this opportunity with.
So let's break this down real quick, and then we'll get some insight from Travis and Bob and Ed if need be. So what I would suggest is I would go to that local township zoning meeting and council meeting and see who are the favorable. See if you could identify the favorable members of the either or, because there could be some overlap, and there usually is politically in some of these local communities, and see who is pro development and identify the zoning attorneys that are there that are presenting relevant or near relevant to that same area and presenting successfully approved permits or zoning deals on behalf of their clients. Don't give away too much because if you give away your opportunity, that now it's somebody else's opportunity. But I would try to see, because you're going to have to play chess with the community, okay? And you want to have the right chess pieces on the board when you're ready to present either to zoning or council whatever you're trying to accomplish. It could be the same thing. I don't know your community that well. I'm just talking from a 50-foot level. But I would definitely look at understanding what that community is looking from an adaptive reuse. zoning changes that can create opportunities for adaptive reuse, transforming existing land or structure to new purposes. And that zoning change, will they allow the conversion to whatever you're trying to accomplish? Is it relevant to the market? Is it a necessary asset to the market? Is it going to be an encumbrance to the market? Who's going to come and be the pain in your ass at that zoning meeting? You're going to find that person at that meeting. You're going to see that stickler at that meeting. So that's what I would try to figure that out. And then you get back into property value on the back end. You could come into the general scope of work in the back end. That's all easy stuff once you know if the community even is going to be friendly to it. Then you're going to have to figure out how much it's going to cost just to get to the starting line, because third party costs are not cheap. You're probably into that for 10, 15 grand before you even have a permit or any kind of allowability to what you're trying to do. And then you got to control the land or control the asset, and then you got to come up with a general scope of work. You got to come up with comps on the back end. You got to do a due diligence on the market values and market rents to justify income and approach to the property, and the value of the property from a market approach, and then be able to identify the lender that wants to kind of play ball with that deal. Travis, you have any insight or input to the discussion so far in zoning and land use strategies for real estate investors?
No, I really don't. I'm sorry. So
It's okay.
This is more educational for me.
That's all good. Hey, listen, we're here to. I don't want to leave anybody out. I'm not like one of those guys in high school that only picks on certain people. I pick on everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
My pleasure. Bob, any insight additional to what I just discussed with Justin in regards to his scenario?
Well, no additional insight. I think you actually nailed it, especially with the tips about who to connect with when you go to those meetings. And I'll just reemphasize one thing you said. The old phrase, loose lips sink ships. Don't give away more information than you have to about what you're working on, because you don't want someone to upstage your deal, especially if they're a little bit more politically or bureaucratically connected than you. Back to you, Joe.
Thanks, Bob. You couldn't say it any better. I'll use the word windy. When somebody's a little too windy, they give away too much insight. I like the individuals that sit there and listen. Sit there and listen. Don't get too involved. Just watch and listen, and try to make sure anybody that does have any interest, grab their card, get their information. Don't have the discussion at hand of what you're trying to accomplish there on site. That's another thing. Be very cautious when if you're trying to do your due diligence at a zoning or land use meeting, because people have real big ears there. And again, the ones that are not fans of anything of development are going to be there as well. Ed, do you want to give any insight as well to Justin in regards to our discussion so far? Ed, going once? Ed fell asleep, I think. We bored the living daylights out of him, I think. I forced Ed to come up now because I made him a moderator, guys. So we're going to pick on Ed as much as we can possible. But it's all good. But Justin, I'd lay out tracks for yourself over when's the next zoning meeting? When's the next community meeting? You got to go to both. You gotta really relate and keep it as quiet as possible while you're doing your due diligence. Justin, are you there? Justin?
Yeah, I was trying to get to my button, but I definitely am trying to keep it quiet. And like I said, I'm actually looking to get with somebody. I've run into a couple people on this app who I think would be good to kind of mentor me through this thing. I have done a lot more research than I'm saying right now.
Yeah.
Too.
Okay.
So I'm gonna try to limit my talking too. Another thing is I probably, before I do a whole lot of reaching out to like professionals here, local professionals, I'm going to have it under contract. So I have kind of made that decision.
To control the deal. Yeah, so if you control the deal, then you're in a much better circumstances when you start going, like having conversations with the professionals that you need to circle around with for advice. But I would definitely go and see what's going on in the immediate community impact, because they might not like what you're thinking. You got to find out what they like. right? You want to make it an easy slide to home, right? You don't want to go head first and find out, you're going head first into a wall.
Right. Yeah, I'll probably just go in there and listen. See what the tone of the area is for that kind of change.
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, there's certain investment strategies and risks. Okay, there's location, there's zoning and land use restrictions or environmental factors. When it comes to single family, multifamily condos, townhomes, co-ops, that's residential. When you're talking about land, you need to understand the market conditions. You need to understand your neighborhood. You need to understand the location. Is transportation and parking, whatever you're trying to build out, they're gonna want to know, does parking justify whatever you're building? Like these big warehouses, you're converting it back to something. There's no parking now. You're bringing 50 residential units, 100 residential units to an area that already doesn't have parking. How are you justifying that? Are you justifying that there's a bus transportation spot right in front of the building? Is there a train down the block? Most of the people that are living there are going to be bicycling, or they're going to be taking train or bus. Now, if you can convince that neighborhood that that's going to happen, then they've done that in a lot of cities. Is the safety going to be there for them as well? Is there going to be video everywhere? Is there going to be fenced in protection for the tenants? There's a lot of things that come into place when you're doing conversions and looking for the zoning the reset or land use strategies. You need to understand. I get a kick out of people saying, I'm gonna buy one of these commercial buildings because I'm buying it so cheap, and I'm gonna turn it into this. But does that market bear the appetite for more commercial office space, or medical office space, or workspace that's virtual workspace? Like my offices are in a virtual workspace that was once a restaurant facility. The gentleman that rebuilt out this neighborhood in South Philadelphia called Newbold, this is where his office is, and he put workspace below it. Now, I don't know. I really don't see it as a moneymaker for him, but I think it covers the bills so he can support his office upstairs. It's a great facility. We have conference rooms. We have a bar area where you get unlimited beer in the afternoon, and you could have unlimited coffee and things of that nature, and that's good. Yardell and I, we find it very comfortable. People are very cordial there, but I don't think it could be anything else. It's not going to be a residential space. It's really in a mixed use environment of schools across the street. They have no parking. So, like, they had to go to the neighborhood association, which he had an in with because he recreated the neighborhood of this area, and say, hey, listen, I want to put this building where my office is, and I want to add office space. So you don't think anybody said, hey, what's the parking going to be like? Well, there is no parking. That's South Philadelphia. Well, okay. Well, you think it was you don't think there was one person that complained? There had to be somebody. There's always that one person that's going to say something. So you have to justify the complainers as well as the people that are supporting it. And that's the art of zoning and land use strategy for real estate investors. Let's get some brief outros from everyone. And I want to thank everybody calling here from the Landlord Expo here in Columbus, Ohio. This is Joe Scarice, founder and host of the Creative Burst Strategies podcast, right number 43. Justin, your outro and thoughts to zoning and land use strategies for real estate investors.
Yeah. Thanks for having it this morning. Like I said, man, this was right on time to keep me going and keep me. It's been a process. I got an Excel spreadsheet with about 75 different line items that range from everything from geosite prep stuff that I got to do and topographic. Each one of those items is kind of like that, and it's about 60 of them just to get through this process. So I absolutely know it's going to be a process, and I appreciate you for reminding me how important it is to just kind of watch how I work, what I work. And so, like I said, definitely going to be looking to getting into this. Definitely going to be looking for some counsel with it, and just take my time with it. I have other stuff that I have going on. Thankful, very thankful for that right now. And once again, I appreciate you for the opportunity for me to come up here and learn some stuff to help me keep going. And see you guys on.
Yep, thank you, Justin. And look out for my article that we that I just posted this past week on zoning and land use strategies. Travis, your outro in regards to zoning and land use strategies for real estate investors.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me up here. Like I said, this was mostly educational for me. It's not something that I've really even thought about before, but I can see where there's going to be a big financial opportunity if you take on this type of a project, because something that's difficult, a lot of people aren't going to do it, right? So dealing with difficult things usually ends up bringing a big profit. So those that are doing it, you know that they know what they're doing. So I like what you've been saying about, getting in the room, listening to these people, being a listener, and seeing who's involved, who the players are. Somehow become friends with those people. That's definitely a way to go about doing something like that. You have to, get these people on the community, whatever they are, the zoning boards in your favor. So, yeah, anyway, that's me. I'm Travis. I'm a real estate broker here in Houston. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Travis. Identify the windy professionals at these events and just sponge up who you want to align yourself with. From what Travis said, I think that's key. And it's not always about land development. It could be conversions and reversions to opportunities that are out there currently. There's a lot of just aged real estate assets out there that can be converted to something for the new value add. Bob, your outro in regards to zoning and land use strategies for real estate investors.
Well, everything I've been hearing here, just thinking back to my engineering career, everything's on point. Like as we said, there's always going to be somebody who shows up at these meetings to complain about something. The squeaky wheel always gets the grease. And a lot of the meetings, and this is something that may frustrate. I mean, I know early in my career, this always frustrated me. People you're going to hear from the most are usually going to be the people that are going to claim that they represent, this and that and the other thing. They represent the neighborhood. They represent this, and they're going to just go all out. Most people who have no problems with your project are never going to show up at the meetings. So don't be surprised if a lot of what you hear is negative feedback. It does not necessarily mean that you're not going to get something done, but those are the people that are generally going to show up at the meetings the most and push back. Because let's face it, there's another old saying: you have a good experience, you tell two people. You have a bad experience, you tell 20 people. People tend to complain more than they tend to compliment. So the strategy is being very simple: learn your market, see who the players are, keep your lips zipped, and keep your deals in your pocket until it's time to put the cards on the table once you've locked it down. But do your homework. There's no shortcuts in success. And as I always tell people, even with managing LLCs and corporations, my primary job, the minute you start taking shortcuts is the minute your house of cards starts to crumble, no matter what. So just be aware. Just like I said, be aware of your surroundings, and team yourself up with the best professionals out there, people who understand how to navigate the system. They will be absolute godsends for you at the end of the day. Again, my name's Bob. Nothing I said today was intended as legal or tax advice or engineering advice, for that matter. Joe, I turn the microphone back to you.
Thank you, Bob. Always. Amy, you came in on the back end. Love to just get a quick intro from yourself and a rose amongst the thorns here.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. It was a late night strategy session. I'm a startup founder, so we've been working really late into the night. We have a bunch of things that we're working on. And I was like, I missed the room. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm Amy Calvado. I am the founder and CEO of Facilimax, and I'm also the chairwoman of the U.S. PropTech Council. I'm sure this was a fabulous room because, Joe, that's all you have are fabulous rooms. So it sounds like a great topic around zoning and land use strategies, but that's I've been a real estate developer for a long time, so I wish I could have been in here, but I'm sure it was all just good without me. So there you go.
Well, thank you, Amy, and I'll hopefully see you tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time at our main event on Sunday. I want to thank our sponsors today: Realty 411 with Leland and Pelagus, our national publication for real estate professionals with national events throughout the country, collaborating with Creative Bird Strategies as well. MB Capital, your unsecured business line of credit program that provides unsecured business lines for real estate professionals. Lendmark Capital, your nationwide asset-based lender. And we saved the best for last. Perkatech, Yardell Perkins, our social media strategist, as I call him, the Oz behind the drape, the backbone to our social media here at the podcast at Creative Bird Strategies. You can find us on creativebirdstrategies.podcast.com or creativebirdstrategies.com. All our uploads are there. We have now 43 episodes of our podcast. We're going to keep it moving. We're collaborating with Clubhouse. We are the only Clubhouse room that has a website, a podcast, educational tools for their listeners, CE credits for licensed real estate agents on asset-based lending and soon to be wholesaling real estate throughout the country. And we come to national events through Realty 411 and collaborate and mastermind real estate education. I'm here every Saturday morning, 8 a.m., every Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, providing education, strategy, and networking. My quote this morning: success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles which he has overcome. Booker T. Washington. Everybody have a blessed Saturday morning. Please have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. on the Creative Bird Strategies podcast. I'll be ending the room in the next 30 seconds.